This video, I thought we'd discuss how you can learn from other YouTube artists, what to look out for, and what to listen for that might pull you into a trap. Um, so, I thought we'd start with some of the advice that other YouTube artists give. They give good advice. I've watched a lot of YouTube artists who I've learned a great deal from. But sometimes I found that I was going backwards rather than forwards when I immersed myself in too many different artists with too many different views on how something should be done and what techniques to use, and I would find myself just going stir crazy because I just could not paint the way they were telling me to paint. So my advice is to, when you're watching them, listen to them and then take what they say as a 60 to 80% truth, and then the other 40 to 20% is your discretion. So I'll give you an example. They say only use fat brushes when you're oil painting and don't get into the detail. That is largely true. But I have driven myself crazy using a fat brush when quite obviously a smaller brush was required. So don't take what they say too literally. What they're doing is describing how painting works for them, and that's great because that is still extremely valuable advice. But it doesn't mean that you can't do it your way. Take that advice, learn from it what you can, and then apply it to your own style and technique. So my other tip when watching other YouTube artists is to find artists that paint like you, because I have watched artists who I like very much but who just don't paint like me. So I'll give you another example. I've watched artists that are very loose and free and abstract and can paint a painting in under 15 minutes, and that is not for me. I thought it was. I really like the simplicity of paintings, but I do prefer a bit more realism and a little bit more art hygiene, if you like, than that. So that's not for me, but that's not to say I don't enjoy that, watching those kind of videos. I do, but it does impact on the way I then go and approach the easel. And so I have to be mindful not to watch videos that are going to influence me negatively when I'm painting. And the other kind of artist that I find it very difficult to watch and really does influence me terribly are the really technical painters who, are really technical about how you mix your colours and, what equipment you should be using and how you should approach the painting in such a sort of architectural way. That is definitely not for me. And actually, that just left me feeling like I could never be an artist, a proper oil painter, because you simply cannot twist your character, your style, your temperament, and your personality and screw it up until it fits some other completely different personality, character, and style just because they tell you that's what you need to do. They're not really telling you that's what you need to do, but obviously, by their strict instructions about how to paint, that's what they're telling you to do. And if you're anything like me as a creative, you are definitely not technical. You're mindful of the skills that you need to accomplish the painting that you want to the level that you want. And I'm still very much learning, as you can probably tell. But you know, you can't make yourself into another person. It's like when I see sketches of cathedrals and, buildings, and I look at them and they're so technical in the detail. They're sketches, but they're almost architectural. And I mean, I probably could draw like that if I got my rulers out and started mapping everything out, but I would not be an artist. If that's what it took to become an artist, I'd move on and probably just stick to gardening or something. I am not that kind of person. I'm very visual. I'm very, instinctive. I'm very sort of touchy-feely. And if I'm not, um, just going with the flow, then I'm not going anywhere, frankly. So, people get really serious about colours, where in fact the value range is much more important. And some people really do paint like it is painting by numbers, and they're just colouring in the blocks. And I cannot do that. I need to cover the canvas or the board in this case as I go. So, what else can I say about how to watch other YouTube artists? Well, they do have obviously a lot of good advice, but I suspect really it will all boils down to trusting your own instincts. So, if there are things that are working for you, then don't give them up because that's what makes you individual as an artist. I've seen so many, individual artists, and I think, if they'd followed these strict guidelines, they would not be painting the way they're painting today. And thank God they didn't, because some of them paint beautifully and they do things that I would never have thought of. And they wouldn't do that if they were literally believing to the letter everything that some other artist told them. It's a bit like in school, when you're painting or you're doing something creative and your teacher comes along and says that's not how you do it, the rules say you do it like this. Well, that's just rubbish, isn't it? Because especially with art, you just do it how you want. But as I say, it will save you a lot of time and money if you do sort of understand some of the things that they say are true, such as sometimes equipment is really handy. When they're talking about equipment, that is really handy. Talking about values is really handy. When they talk about sort of warm and light shadows, all these things are really important. About sort of disappearing edges, so you have a hard edge where the light hits an object, and a sort of disappearing edge, a fading edge, where the shadow, where the object falls into and meets the shadow. Things like that are just really lovely details that I'm really grateful that I got from other YouTube artists. So what else can I say about watching YouTube videos? Yeah, I mean, my biggest pitfall, I think, that I wish you would avoid, I hope you avoid, is um, watching one artist. So I artist binge. I don't know if any of you do this, but I find a new artist and then I binge all their videos. And then what I find is that it negatively impacts the way I paint my next painting. So that's why it's really important to find an artist um, that is more like you, but better, if you know what I mean. So that when you reach your easel and you sit down to paint, what you're doing is you're painting exactly how you would, but better, because you've found this artist who has done it longer than you, who has taken it to the next level. And so, that's really important. And be mindful also that YouTubers have to make videos to get views and to get an audience. So, what they might do is say, you must, they do a video on brushes and they'll say, oh, I've done that. I've mentioned this before, but where you can only use a fat brush, and then 3 videos later they're using a thin brush 5 minutes into the painting, and you think, what? Why did I do that? Why did I listen to that? Why did I, nearly torture myself using this fat brush on an eyelash when, this person who told me to do that is now using a thin brush. So, just be mindful of the way YouTube works. You have to compartmentalize subjects into videos, into short videos. And so one might be brushes, one might be mediums, but they are short and they don't cover the whole story. And, you know, these are things, these are the sort of nebulous things, like which medium to use, which brushes to use, that only you can ultimately know from the way you paint, your style, and your progress. So whilst it's helpful information sometimes, it can also negatively impact your painting. Anyway, in this one, I wanted to keep it really loose. And on that note, what I also want to say about this painting is that I went round and round in circles. Now, this is a pitfall of being tired. Now, I've told you before, I've started painting at night because I want to do my garden in the day, simply because, I want it to look a certain way in the summer, and all the preparation needs to be done now. So I'm trying to get out in the garden as much as possible when it's sunny, which means I have to paint in the evening. Now, here's a really important tip. Painting in the evening when you're tired, it can be nice and relaxing, but it can also lead to you being indecisive and finding it difficult to judge the stage of a painting. And that's what happened when I was painting this painting. It was actually approaching 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was going round and round in circles. And I can see, looking back, as I always can, editing the videos, actually art videos, is really helpful for me to see where I go wrong. And I could see that I could have completed this painting in about 1,000 less strokes at least, if I'd have just been more, um, less tired. In short, if I'd just been less tired and my brain was working slightly sharper and better, I would have made better brushstroke decisions and colour decisions, value decisions earlier on, and that would have saved me a lot of time and bother when I was doing this rose. And also, coming back and looking at it this morning as I edit the video, I can see that the rose on the right, I could work on that a bit more. So, but I always say that, and then I never do. But I like to move on, and that's actually, funny enough, that's an important thing as well. I do like to move on with paintings. So when I put my tools down, that is usually it. That's all you're getting. And although I can see where I could go back and improve something, I generally don't. Sometimes a painting is definitely a two-parter, and that's when you have a large canvas, and simply the amount of time it takes to cover that canvas and focus means that you will need to take a break and have some distance from the painting and come back to it maybe the next day, or a day after. I'm sorry about my voice, by the way. It's a bit groggy, and it always is in the morning, and I don't know why. I've had a coffee, but it's very dry. Anyhow, so yeah, so push on, and that's the same with the painting itself. So if you're doing a painting like this, I was very mindful of making progress, and I was feeling quite frustrated that the center of this rose, I was just going round and round in circles, but I think I got there in the end. It just took me a lot longer because I was tired, and you tend to get, I mean, I didn't when I was doing this painting because I've got more experience now, but when I was young, I could get quite upset and frustrated at something like this taking me this long. But now that I know that that's because I'm tired, then I tend to sort of be kinder to myself. So just bear that in mind. Anyway, here it is. So I can see it probably needs a little bit more work. I would say that, but there we are. That's a little yellow rose. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. See you again soon. Bye.